Hi, everyone. I'm going to change the subject today a little bit. I've been talking about philosophy, politics all this time, just heavier subjects in general. So today I want to talk about something for fun and something art related. I would say this is something has helped me develop emotional intelligence. A lot of people don't really care about paintings, and I get it, right? We are wired differently. Some of us lose ourselves in music, others in stories. We're all into different things. But I still want to point out something about visuals, right? They're just everywhere to the point maybe we barely see them anymore. We scroll past images, binge shows, absorb ads, but when we stand in front of, let's say, 100-year-old painting, then it just turns into this irrelevant puzzle all of a sudden. We think to ourselves, what's the point, right? It's just colors on canvas. Why should I care about some dead artist's drama? So art history tries to help with that. It would say something like, this was painted in 1892 during the artist depression, and soon after that, the war broke out, blah, blah, blah. But if I be honest here, right, for a lot of us, that just turns the painting into textbook. It's just like, okay, but how does this relate to me? Right? Here's the thing. Paintings don't play by modern attention rules, right? They don't move, they don't autoplay, they don't have sound. So they sort of just exists in silence, right? The traditional approach makes this even worse, right? We're told, well, you need to understand the historical context or you should study artist biography. And here's what critics say about this painting, what it means and all that. I personally feel all of this is the wrong way to look at a piece of artwork. You don't need to know the historical context. You don't need to study anything. You don't even need to have any knowledge about art in general. As a painter myself, I find this whole textbook study approach is completely meaningless in a way. This is not what art is really about in the end. So it's not a subject where you have to come up with some kind of thesis, in class to understand. You only need one thing: emotion. If a painting has managed to trigger any type of emotion in you, any at all, right, it has done its job. It doesn't matter what emotion: confusion, nothingness, disgust, strangeness, anything. Unlike science and philosophy, this is one area where your own projection can be the ultimate truth. So that's why art shouldn't be this, sophisticated, mysterious thing that makes people say, sorry, I just don't understand art. But you do understand. Right? The moment you search how you feel when you're looking at a painting, find something inside. That's it. You understand art, right? It's that simple. Not only did you understand it, you understand in the most authentic, truthful way possible. So through your own projected emotions. Now think about why we say art is liberating, right? It's simple. Your own projection is the acceptable interpretation. So when a group of people look at artwork, right, everyone's interpretation is equal. Everyone's feeling is equal. So me as an artist, right, I don't possess superior understanding about how to feel about a piece of artwork more than anyone else. So I'm sure a lot of painters would be very bored if someone gave this historical analysis about their work, right? We only care about one question: how do you feel? That's it. So think about it. Isn't that kind of liberating? I personally feel artists who hold similar views probably have the ability to create some of the most interesting and thought-provoking paintings. Now, let's talk about how I approach this. Let's talk about memories first, and how it impacts artworks. Do you ever have those reoccurring dreams, or maybe just a single unforgettable one, where you feel both comfort and familiarity, yet also loneliness and isolation, or even horror sometimes? I think people who lived complicated lives are more likely to experience frequent, vivid, and ambiguous dreams. But honestly, I believe everyone's life is complicated in its own way. While there have been a few instances where I'm still not sure whether an event was just a dream or it actually happened. So it's funny how memories work. I want to talk about this personal experience to explain what I mean in the context of art. So you know how small children often exhibit this behavior of mimicking idol-like activities, without really understanding them? I don't know if it's a child attempt to make sense of idol world in some ways. Many people must have had some similar experience when you look back on your childhood, right? Something sort of like, the sofa your parents sat on at home seemed so much bigger in your memory than you, and you couldn't help observing the strange patterns on it. Why does the pattern look like this? Or, things like the ashtray on the table with cigarette butts, because my father, he was a smoker. And you often, saw that as a child, and you just couldn't figure out what this was all about. And you ask questions, what makes adults do what they do, but they never seem to provide any solid answers, right? And sometimes you ask questions that seem meaningless to them too, such as why is the ashtray is round shaped instead of square? So maybe the color of the sofa in your memory made you feel some type of way. The humming fridge in the middle of the night made you feel some way. Maybe your parents whispering in the kitchen under dim light discussing, adult world things made you feel some type of emotion that you couldn't explain. All these feelings that you couldn't quite put into words as a child, these objects, the puzzling meaning behind their existence, become this mystery about the adult world. And, sometimes they start creeping into your dreams, and silently in the background, these dreams have started to shape your relationship with the world. I remember when I was young, my uncle owned a restaurant. I was hanging around the place for fun, but largely I was there because I wanted to mimic adults, working in restaurant. I wanted to participate in this adult activity. So it was this cold, gloomy day. Business was very slow. I was standing on the chair behind the counter, trying to pretend I was an adult, watching the customers eating, but most tables were empty on that day. The restaurant was quieter than usual. It felt like, it was about to rain. Then a bird flew inside the restaurant, right? It happens. Birds smell food and they wander in, right? When the bird got inside, everyone started chasing it until it crashed onto a window and the bird got injured and fell. Right? Normally, the staff would just catch the bird with a basket and release them outside. But I remember hearing my uncle hired a few new people lately, working in the restaurant. One of them, this is slender, tall-looking guy who always wore this black working uniform from head to toe. He did something very unusual that day and left a very deep impression with me as a child. So he walked straight to the bird and smashed it with a hammer. Not just once, right? Several times. And just blood was everywhere, right? I remember the stunned silence that followed. Everyone was just frozen by how bizarre the scene was, because that was so cruel and completely unnecessary. Then months later, I was hanging around the restaurant as usual when I heard some excited chatter from the kitchen at the back. Right? So I went to look and I saw the same guy again. This time he was gripping a sheep by its neck. He was trying to, kill the sheep for, to make food. So the animal kicked wildly. I remember seeing blood pooled thick and dark around his shoes. Then he turned to me, right? That he just was this very expressionless face. And he said, you have to hold them like this or they just struggle too much. So fast forward, it was one of those very stormy evening, right? The house was making a lot of sound. My dad had gone out for groceries, so I was alone in our house. When it's very stormy, your ground floor windows just felt, way too close to the dark outside because I was alone. I was very young. I remember sitting on my bed watching the trees, thrash around, getting that prickly feeling on my neck as it got darker. And I think I just woke up from a nap, so I was a little confused. Then I heard this tiny peep sound coming from the living room, like a bird, like a baby bird. And when I went to look, right, there it was, the same kind of sparrow that flew into the restaurant, just sitting on the floor by the door. I remember the wings, all ruffled, like it just couldn't fly properly. Now, here's the weird part. All the windows and doors were shut tight, right? No way a bird could fly in. That's why I always thought it had to be a dream. Even what happened next was just all fuzzy, right? Just these broken images, me holding the bird, trying to give the bird water with my fingertips. So for years, I was sure I'd imagined the whole thing, right? So then one day I mentioned it to my dad on the phone, and he casually told me how my uncle used to send that waiter over with food and other things from my uncle, right? For my dad sometimes. And if my father wasn't home, the guy would let himself in with a spare key. So I asked my father, so do you ever remember coming home to me holding a bird? He said maybe. So here I am, no way to ever know if that bird really found its way inside or if my brain just took all those messed up memories and cooked up something new in my sleep. Now the violence of the bird's death in the restaurant, right, imprinted itself, while later the sparrow's appearance inside my house blurred into this, I would say, dream-like haze. That's how memory works, right? For me, not as a recording, but sort of like this painting concept constantly being revised, right? Like trauma, right? Witnessing cruelty, sharpen some details while dissolving others. So meanwhile, the barrel in my house might be a subconscious, thing. I made it up. My mind mixing the restaurant horror with childhood vulnerability in some ways. I've tried many times to recreate this particular strange, ambiguous, unsettling feeling from these events in my paintings. While it doesn't necessarily mean I would literally depict a bird or the restaurant, could use essentially anything to convey the idea. So I only need to convey the feeling this whole dreamlike event gave me. So a lot of symbolism will be used if I were to paint this memory. So when I say paintings don't need historical context, they only need your emotion, right? Just like my personal stories, right? It's about this feeling of witnessing cruelty and the uncanny blur of memory, right? What it does to my mind. And through this process, I've been able to explore how these experiences shaped, my developing mind at the time in those early years. Perhaps it impacted how I view people and how I feel about the world. Now, to me, the restaurant the bird memory is a visceral and haunting, right? Memory and dreams are already like art. It illustrates how paintings channel, perhaps the subconscious fragments like trauma, ambiguity, dreams, and they don't document reality, right? They distill how reality feels, right? Paintings communicate through intuition, right? Not explanation. So to me, this is exactly what painters do when they channel the subconscious. Think of Francis Bacon's Screaming Pope. He wasn't painting a literal pope, but the feeling of being trapped, the memory of his father's violence, perhaps, something like that. I mean, the artist doesn't say, this is a bird dying, right? They paint the weight of the silence afterward, right? The thickness of the floor underfoot, the way light hits the feathers at the wrong angle. Your memories already work like this, right? So emotions distort scales, right? So the mind tend to edit these details relentlessly. Like I remember the waiter's hands, right? But not so much about his face. So a painter would sort of do the same, right? Kind of smudging unimportant details. So when you paint from, subconscious, right? You're not illustrating events. You're recreating how memory feels. That's why a good abstract work can unsettle without any recognizable imagery, right? The viewer's brain does the same thing I did with the sparrow, right? Like this feels familiar and unsettling, but why? So my painting doesn't need to explain my memory. It just needs to activate the viewers. So for example, if an artist paints a shadowy figure by an open door, one viewer might recall a childhood intruder, or another just some primal fear of the dark. None of them is wrong, right? The human mind hates uncertainty and will compulsively project meaning onto vague and evocative imageries. So that's why Francis Bacon's Screaming Pope, horrified people who've never seen the Pope, right? Or even know the internal struggles the painter had. They just get this feeling of being trapped, animals sort of like panic. So even if your viewer never saw a bird being killed in this case, right? Like from my memory, their brain knows the metaphor, right? So the power of, I don't know why, but this disturbs me. Good artwork, right, bypasses logic and speaks directly to the mind, right? To the emotion. And when a viewer says, well, this painting feels lonely, right? Though it's just a chair in an empty room, or they say the colors makes me anxious, though it's just some muted blues, right? They're describing their subconscious reacting, not the painters. So now let's look at one specific painting from Edvard Munch. So I want to talk about a painting from him, maybe far less famous than The Scream, right? Which is Edvard Munch's Summer Night by the Beach. There's no human in this painting, as you can see. Yet it provokes a lot of personal feelings in me. Again, to know the historical context is good if that's what interests you. Like I said, I don't think it's important. Now, as you can see, this painting is called Summer Night by the Beach. It depicts a coastal scene at the twilight or under moonlight. So the upper portion of the painting is dominated by a deep blue, violet sky, suggesting late evening or night. And this blue to me feels very melancholic, right? Sort of like distant memory or place in your dream, perhaps. Then you see this prominent, luminous orb, right? Likely the moon or the low sun if it's twilight, right? Hands in the sky. It created this reflection on the water. I just love it so much. It's so dreamy and beautiful. Also seems so lonely and sad. As if it's like this sleepless night. You wander into the beach alone and you are in the solitude and this is what you see. Or perhaps you wandered into this place in your dream. Then you can see this water and reflection, right? A large body of water rendered in various shades that, with that melancholic blue and purple and stretches across the middle ground. Then you can see a strong elongated reflection of the, orb shimmers vertically on the water surface, breaking into this horizontal segments as it approaches the ground. Then you can see the rocks pebbles, right? There's a, possibly white, gray with the hints of pale green or blue separating the water from the land. You see the water here is calm yet mysterious, right? It gives this intense, solitary, almost existential feeling. So I personally think, right, these emotions and thoughts just make life seem more interesting, right, and mysterious in a way. I think paintings respect the viewer's intelligence in this way. So gaps, in paintings, things that not there kind of become this collaboration with the viewer. Painter, right, sort of forces the viewer to co-create something together when it comes to the meaning and the feelings of the emotion. So this sort of passive viewing, for viewers just become this active discovery, right? Like a blurred figure on canvas is not laziness. It's just the invitation to, let viewer project their own ghost onto it. So the painting is just the surface, right? Somebody else said this too, that the storm happens inside the viewers. So why triggering emotion in viewers, I believe, leads to growth. Emotional growth. I think art that unsettles, haunts, or deeply moves its audience does more than just create a reaction, right? I think it provokes some type of transformation in the mind. You know how discomfort breaks mental patterns? So when a painting, a film, or story triggers an unexpected emotional response, right? Even like dread, nostalgia, unease, it sort of disrupts the viewer's usual way of thinking. For example, a distorted face in a portrait might make someone realize, oh, why does this remind me of my father, right? Leading to an unconscious connection. So leading to an unconscious connection, maybe they hadn't thought about it deeply before. So as a result, right, the brain is forced to reconcile the discomfort. It often leads to some type of self-reflection. Art acts as a mirror for the subconscious. Viewers project their own experiences onto ambiguous and emotionally charged imageries. And sometimes when a painting becomes very triggering for a person, right, or film or movie can do the same thing, expanding emotional capacity through this controlled pain. So engaging with challenging art trains emotional resilience. A film about grief allows viewers to process feeling of loss, right? Making them more empathetic or prepared for real life sorrow. As a result, right, the people develop a deeper emotional intelligence and become more capable of handling complex emotions in real life. And if a piece of artwork provokes you in some ways, kind of pushes boundaries. So when it disturbs, provokes, it sort of motivates change. So I think this matters for an artist's work when artist infuses their painting with raw, unresolved emotions. So the more universal the emotion, right? For example, fear of cruelty, longing for safety, the deeper it resonates or triggers. So the more ambiguous the imagery, right? A shadow instead of clear figure, the more room for projection. So now with everything we discussed here, do you really think it's important to read textbooks and create complicated when you look at a painting or any, artwork? Sure, out of personal interest, art history can give context, but I still think your personal response is what makes piece of art alive for you. People who are into psychoanalysis probably will say you're projecting unconscious desires onto the canvas. So when you walk into a gallery next time, right, forget about history books or knowledge of any kind. Forget what you should see or feel. Just stand there and let the painting speak to you. However they make you feel, right, that's your truth and no one else. And who knows, maybe you will walk out seeing the world and yourself just a little differently that day.